people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Oh my God, we're back. We're back, finally. And I'm in my new digs. It looks a little bit different here. I honestly wasn't sure if this was going to happen because I've noticed when I get to a new place and I have to set up a new office, for some reason, I don't know what it is, the first stream feels weird. It just feels weird and it's hard to do. I don't know why. It's probably just me. Definitely is me. But the first stream's hard to do in terms of actually going live and getting the content together because you're also like engulfed in a whole new place, new surroundings, new things, new food, new weather. And there's a big part of me that's like, you know, you should be out doing that. And I will, but this had to come first. We had to get this done. And I'm glad we're here. I actually shouldn't ramble too much because we have a big show today. We actually have a lot to get into. So I think the first half of this show is just going to be like news, stuff that we've missed and stuff that we haven't really talked about that's happened over the last couple of days. And then the last half of the show, I'm hoping to go for maybe an hour each half would be good. Second half of the show, we're going to be looking at clips from Tim Alberino on Jesse Michels' podcast. And man, Jesse put out a 5-hour podcast. 5 hours. I've only clipped about 20 minutes of it. But that's what we're going to be looking at today. And a couple of other clips that I found as well, kind of weaved in from Diana Pasulka, which I think kind of support some of the things that Tim was talking about. So I think it's going to be a really good show. Yvonne, thank you for the $10. She says this is to make up for my Josh 2.0 comment. Thank you. Yep, I see everything. And while we're here, if you guys haven't, you've probably seen that there are videos going up that are collaborated with Polarity 2.0, which is my clips channel. So when you see that collaboration, it's basically a clip from a live stream. So if you don't catch all the live streams, you might see a clip of a small segment from a live stream that you've missed. So it's still worth checking out. And the link to that channel is down there below as well if you want to subscribe to get all of the clips. Anyway, with all of that said and done, I think we should get onto it. I will say as well, for those of you who don't know, I'm in Thailand at the moment, and it is like 37 degrees minimum every single day. Every single day. Some days it's 38, some days it's 39, but for the foreseeable future, it is 37 minimum. That's Celsius. So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. But in Australia, we call that fucking hot. Okay, it's fucking hot, and it's got no sign of changing. Anyway, sorry for all the children listening. This is not primetime TV. Sweaty jocks, yep, sweaty jocks, smelly computer chairs. Tis the season. Anyway, we're going to kick off with some sad news. Unfortunately. RIP to Nick Pope, rest in peace. Ufologist from the UK, helped bring the conversation forward quite a bit and always had like a really unique, fascinating, balanced and measured take on things. And just one of those people who, when they speak, it's very like inviting and you feel comfortable to listen to them. And you know, not everyone speaks like that. You know, I can think of a few people. Some of them rhyme with even beer, not as comfortable to listen to. Doesn't mean they're not saying important things though. But Nick Pope was one of them. And this was a message from his wife. My heart is breaking. Nick passed away this afternoon at our home. The last few weeks of his life, even as he suffered, he managed to do a few interviews from home. I was so lucky to have met and married Nick. He was a wonderful husband. I loved him dearly. Very sad. Nick got I can't remember what kind of cancer it was. I mean, no, cancer is good, right? They're all bad, but he had cancer And it seemed like it moved pretty quickly. And rest in peace, Nick Pope. I just felt that was important to touch on. Let's get a little update here from the general. Well, not from the general, about the general, from Tim Burchett. And we're going to hear a little bit more from Tim with a video that just broke out today as well after this.
What happened with this two-star
Congressman? I understand there's others too, right? I was seeing that there's like a whole bunch of scientists that are also tied to some top secret stuff.
Yes, ma'am. The lady that disappeared, she had a lot to do with the metallurgy, the top secret metallurgy that we use in some of our missiles and stuff. I mean, it all just kind of fits together. And it's a very small fraternity. And when anytime one of them, something happens to one, the others take note of it. And I was briefed this week, or this past week, and I'll just say that that group is very nervous. They are very nervous about what's going on.
It's interesting to hear Tim, talk about how they don't even tell their wives about this kind of stuff because they know that knowing things can be dangerous. But it just makes me think of the things that his wife mentioned in that, was it like an email or a letter, or like a public message where she was saying how like Neil doesn't know anything about the aliens that are housed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base that were taken there after the Roswell crash. Like, I don't know if that's not verbatim, but it was something like that. She was basically saying, like, my husband doesn't know any secrets about the Roswell aliens that crashed here that we took to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He doesn't know nothing about that. It's kind of like, wait, what? Look, I don't know. The whole thing is spooky. And I think if you don't think that it's spooky, you're either just uninformed or just ignorant. I think you're just uninformed or ignorant at this point. With this many people, with this many connections going missing, disappearing, or just being murdered in broad daylight, you're just uninformed or ignorant if you don't think that something very weird is going on here. Now, this next clip dropped today. Quite interesting. 4.5 minutes with Tim Burchett talking to TMZ. Now, I know TMZ doesn't have the best reputation. I'm Australian, so I don't really know. I just know that people think of it in a funny way. As to my free folk in the chat, how would you explain to me TMZ? What kind of outlet is TMZ? And what business do they have speaking about UFO phenomenon? Well, actually, what business do they have? Of course, they're allowed to talk about whatever they want. But is it weird? Is it strange? Paparazzi, garbage. That is kind of the vibe that I get. Akey Balls says, rest in peace, Nick Pope, with $100. Akey, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you as always. And yes, let's get some love in the chat for Akey and for Nick Pope. And I'm going to slap I can't like it as well, but I put a love heart on it. Big love to Nick Pope today. No kind of business. Yeah, well, I mean, technically the phenomenon, it's kind of everyone's business. But I think when certain outlets that have a reputation begin to report on it, it can sometimes cast not even a negative light, but just not the kind of light you want on a critical topic, I guess. Anyway, let's listen to it.
What did you see now, I guess it would be about 2 weeks ago? That was very alarming, the way you said that, at least.
Yeah, well, because of the circumstances and where it was, I can't get into too much specifics, but it was elaborating on some stuff that we'd asked for, and it was important to get this person in a secure setting to where we could ask him these questions. And there was somebody in the meeting with us, one of my colleagues, I guess you'd say, was basically there just to kind of upset the apple cart and to throw, a monkey wrench into the deal. And every time a question was asked by this particular party, it was really the answers were out there, and they gave them, and they gave specifics, they gave addresses, they gave times and dates and people that were in the meeting. And this went all the way up to the executive branch of previous presidents, not this current president.
So there have been different reports over the years. Some reports that there have been pieces of machinery that were found that did not seem earthly. And then there have been reports about life that is not earthly. Which one of those two, or both, are you talking about? A form of life that is not earthly, or just something mechanical that's
These dudes are such goobers. Yeah, they are.
not earthly?
I'd say you'd be safe to say both.
The way you described this, whatever happened at this meeting, this briefing that was happening, was there something that if we knew, we would feel that we are in danger? You said you wouldn't sleep at night if you knew the things that I saw in these briefings.
Yeah,
Should we believe that that's the part where it seemed alarming?
I don't think we're at danger of this. I mean, if these things exist as I think they do, they could have destroyed us with a blink of an eye. I just don't see that, and I think that's. I just think, but I do think they have the technology and the capabilities of something that we can't understand or we can't grasp.
What I want to make sure I'm understanding is a member of our government has told you and others, I guess, that there is a form of alien life and machinery which maybe brought this living creature here that interacted in some form with people?
Yeah, they have.
The way they ask questions, it's like, how do I say this without sounding like an asshole? It sounds like they are asking questions knowing that their audience is probably people who struggle to grasp basic concepts.
They have, and they've. It's pretty wild. I know, but I'm just telling you, I'm not going to lie to you. I'd take a lie to tell you. You want to put me on a polygraph, I'll take it. But this is what the guy told me. I mean, I've had a very high-ranking naval official describe. I've talked about this before. Underwater craft, something big as a football field, moving at over 200 miles an hour. And there's no fish in the ocean that would do that.
That ain't no fish.
We don't even have a sub that'll probably do 40 miles an hour under the. And the last thing he said before he left my office was, it was kind of weird because he didn't go out he went out the side door, which nobody ever uses, and he
Johnny says, if my lawnmower could talk, this would be him.
looked at me, pulled me up close, and he said, "Tim, they're real." And that's the last thing he said to me. That'll be the title of my book, I guess. Matt Gaetz was involved in something here just recently. He was interviewed,
yes,
and he talked about this interbreeding thing with.
We saw that. We saw that.
Yeah. Well, that's a true story. That was a military personnel. I think that would be a good story to talk to him about if you all can do that.
Right. He says he learned that from someone in the military.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a guy, it was an officer in uniform. Yeah. And Matt and I and Representative Luna, we all went down to Florida, and we were turned away. And then Matt made a phone call to somebody at the Pentagon, and all of a sudden they opened the doors and brought the pilots in that were supposed to tell us the story in the first place. And he can probably elaborate a little bit more on that. But that was pretty fantastic. That was a made for TV special right there in itself.
So he's saying Matt Gaetz had some kind of power to make this thing happen. It's kind of vague. Like, I don't really understand the details of what he's talking about there, but I do have this clip. It's not so much breaking news now. This kind of happened about a week ago, but this is the clip that sort of went viral that they were referring to. Let's take a listen.
I think the most important information will be the biologics that are not human that have been discovered. And like even some of the briefings that aren't classified just need to be out in the public. I mean, I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. And
so, sorry, let's just
brief me, who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race.
Captured aliens were breeding with humans. If the aliens are the ones that are captured, doesn't that mean, wouldn't that mean we are trying to create the hybrid race? Because we normally think of this from the other perspective, right? That something is coming here and taking us and trying to breed us out into a hybrid race. This sounds like the opposite, like the other way around.
Race that could engage in intergalactic communication. An actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that.
I could look, that could just be poor use of words. I could be reading into that a little bit too much, but normally that's not the way it's explained. I think when we get to the Tim Alberino clips, I think we'll probably go a little bit deeper on this.
Non-human biologics, interracial alien mating. What the F is going on? Look, wait a second. You had whistleblowers tell you this kind of thing? Can you please unpack that?
I had a guy who was uniformed. He was a senior enlisted with the United States Army. Came into my office in Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. I had members of my staff there, and what they explained is that the military ran a very secret program where aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants. Now, again, I didn't verify this, but what the whistleblower was telling me is that there were like between 6 and 12 locations around the country where this happened. And what he wanted was a group, members of Congress, to all show up at the same time at all of these different locations so that any of those activities could not be moved. And of course, it's a physical impossibility to get members of Congress to simultaneously show up at like 8 locations at one time. And so,
why is that physically impossible? Why is it physically impossible to show up at 8 different locations? If you are told that there is human breeding programs or anything to do with the UFO topic, breeding, reverse engineering, whatever it is, if you are given 8 different locations of where this is happening, why is it not possible to organize like a raid? Let's call it a raid for lack of a better word, on where they hit 8 different places at the same time. If this is of utmost importance, like these representatives make it out to be, like it's their top priority, you know, we like the way, like, you know, we hear like Luna talking, it's as if like this is everything. This is like the number one push that they're going for, is like transparency and bringing this important issue, and people deserve to know the truth, etc., etc., etc. Surely people in that position have the pull, the leverage, the power to coordinate something like that. That, like, to me, that doesn't seem far-fetched at all. That kind of seems like a normal thing that they could do if they needed to. Is there 8 representatives willing to do that? I mean, I don't expect them to get in their car and go drive there, but like mobilize like a police force, a military force, like mobilize something and organize it. I don't know, man. That just seems, some of the excuses we get just seem like a bit ridiculous sometimes. Like they don't make sense.
And so that never occurred.
What do you mean non-human?
Craft that had been recovered by the CIA and through a special program that the CIA had for crash recovery, that it wasn't just, you know, the hard materials, it was also biologics, but that they couldn't identify a human source of those biologics.
Sorry, I just lost my chat. Yeah, look, sorry, I lost the last part of that clip because my chat window went out. But anyway, I think you guys get the point, and I want to catch up on a couple of super chats before we keep going with this. I do want to try and finish off the news segment within the hour so we can stay on track. Rain, thank you so much for the $20, my man. Appreciate you. Monkey Sausage with 8 months says, I swear these people are working for Spielberg. This hybrid and non-human biologics narrative is the plot of this new movie. Interesting. Possibly. Wouldn't be surprised. And Prison Mike has gifted a membership as well. Thank you very much, Prison Mike. You are a legend, sir. Okay, let's make sure we're staying up to date here. What do we have next? Oh, okay. This tweet, man. This tweet. This was from Trump on Easter. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There'll be nothing like it. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. What the fuck? What the fuck on so many different fronts? Okay? First of all, why is the president dropping F-bombs? Okay, now I know he's human. Okay, we're all human. We'll drop an F-bomb every now and then. It's okay. It's okay to do that. We're all human. But tweeting it out while you're the president is crazy. I think that's just crazy. Doing it on Easter is also crazy. You know, that's generally a day, it's like a religious holiday, you know? Generally, it's like a day where we try and switch off from the craziness of the world, come back to our families, be grateful for the love and the joy and the people that we have around us, and we kind of have our little escape from the crazy world. Nope. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards. Happy Easter. Praise be to Allah. What fucking timeline is this? Please. What timeline is this? And I also saw that King Charles said that he won't be doing an Easter acknowledgement. Like they just like refuse to do any, like, I guess, recognition of Christian faith. Very strange times, people. Very strange times we're in. When I first saw this tweet, when I woke up and saw this tweet, I straight away, I didn't believe it. I was just like, it's probably, it's like, I mean, this could be so simply edited, right? All you need is a screenshot of his handle and you can write whatever the fuck you want below it. Like, it's extremely simple to fake something like this. So when I read it, I was just like, this is probably a troll. And then I realized it wasn't. He actually said that. So fantastic. That's what you love to see. A nice balanced, measured, calm, collective, and calculated take from the sitting president. That's what you want. Love it. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Amazing. Happy Easter. Oh, all right. This clip's been doing the rounds as well. This is Marco Rubio. Okay, this is not the man who hears everything. And this is not a new clip. Okay, this is from a couple of years ago. But I thought we'd watch it just because it's going around at the moment. And it's just interesting to see how the vibe has shifted, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. How the vibe has shifted. Just before we press play, though, S-Tone says, PSYOP or soft disclosure, you decide. Maybe we should put up a poll for that one. We should get some polls going today. Let's watch this clip.
This morning, we're going to have a classified briefing on the objects that were shot down over the last weekend. First of all, I don't know why it's classified. I do not believe that any of the information that they've shared or are going to share with us is going to be the kind of thing that has to be kept secret. There's very specific reasons why things are classified, and this doesn't meet the standard. Maybe I'm wrong. We're going to find out. Second is this is pretty extraordinary. Okay, this is not just a curiosity or into weird stuff about UFOs and aliens. For the first time in 65 years, the United States has shot something down over our airspace. Not once, but 4 times. And 3 of those 4 things, we have no idea what they are, and people deserve to know what they are. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. You're launching at least $800,000 missiles off of fighter jets over American airspace. That's a pretty big deal.
Isn't it crazy? By the way, I think this is obviously like going back to when that balloon was shot down, and then there was like that object shot down. I think it was in Alaska. Or was it in Canada? I don't know. It was up above main state somewhere. And yeah, it's just crazy to hear him talking about how, you know, the missiles that are used just to shoot these things down, how much money they cost, how much money is spent on this war, right? When missiles, one missile being fired is sometimes like over $1 million, right? Your fighter planes are 38 million or whatever they are. There's just so much money, and so much of it comes from the taxpayer And not only does the taxpayer not get listened to when like the majority of people are like, actually, we'd probably rather not go to war. You know, that 4 billion that a year that you send to Israel, maybe we could use some of that. You know, quite a few homeless on the street. Maybe just like one bill would help if we could have. No, you want all 4? Okay, sorry. Come back next year. We'll have another 4 ready for you. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It's just weird that it kind of feels like legalized robbery in a way. And on top of that, you don't even get told about the things that they're spending your money to shoot down. You don't get to know that either. You just pay and shut the fuck up.
We need to understand why we did it and what these things are, where they come from, who owns them, who made them, why are they here. And perhaps the explanation is easy, and maybe not. The point is that these are important things that the American people deserve to know and that they deserve to hear directly from the president about. Not a political thing here. Okay, people deserve to know, why are we shooting things down? If it's serious enough to shoot down, it's serious enough for you to know something about it.
If it's serious enough to shoot down, it's serious enough for you to know something about it. I mean, do we put that on a t-shirt? Where is this attitude today? Where is this attitude today? It's such a shame that, like, you know, and it just feels like people fall for it every year. Like, for somehow leading up to an election, and this is in every country, guys, not just America, well, Western country, the opposition party is always just selling the world, and they really do seem so promising, and then they get in and it all just kind of like slowly fizzles out and kind of warps and twists and changes a little bit, and it's just like, where is this attitude now?
Look, this is a topic I've been on for a long time, because this is not new. It may sound new, but it really isn't. We have been seeing objects flying over restricted airspace in the United States for a long time now. No one took it seriously because immediately it was about UFOs and flying saucers and aliens. And that's not my concern. My concern is that some other country has developed a capability to monitor and enter our airspace, and that we are not prepared to identify it because they have figured out a way. You know, we're looking for airplanes. We're looking for missiles. We're not looking for objects that don't fit that criteria. And strategic surprise is the way a lot of wars start, and it's the way a lot of wars and conflicts are lost. So these are important questions that need to be answered. But you deserve to hear directly from the president and from the administration, not from spokespeople, and not with double talk and not with unnecessary secrecy. We'll see how this hearing goes. I don't have high expectations of it.
There you go. So that was Marco Rubio a couple of years ago, and unfortunately, doesn't really seem like. It seems like something's shifted. That was a bit quiet for you guys. Sorry, I apologize. I'll try and keep an eye on the volume monitor. It's difficult when you're just watching all random videos because they all have different sound levels, and I think I would rather it be too quiet than to blast your ears. This UFO video has been doing the rounds this week as well. Again, I saw something about some people trying to debunk it, other people saying it's real. I mean, we'll just try and make our own mind up here, but this is apparently in Astana, in Kazakhstan, which the survey results say is in fact the greatest country in the world. Let's take a look.
Время хотеть, а знаю? 20:37. 20:37, mana? Mana ki? Aslında.
Pretty interesting. Any thoughts on what this is? Anyone got any thoughts on what this is? I mean, it's a very unique shape. Like, it looks nothing like anything that we've really seen before. And so, okay, look, just to give you guys a little crash course on, like, you know, is this CGI? Look, it could be. It could be. to make something like, okay, if this was CGI, right, what you would have to do is this would be a real video. We would have to track this whole scene here, like all these buildings here. You would have to track it, because if you were to import something like this, it has to stick and look real where it is. Okay, you can't just like copy paste it. It has to move and stay like it's in the scene. So this would require the whole scene to be 3D tracked, which isn't really easy. And this shot specifically, it wouldn't be easy at all. So I don't think this is CGI. Could be AI, maybe. District 9 vibes. Yeah, it does have that kind of like mothership sitting ominously over the city feel to it. It really does. Like, it looks like lights from the bottom of a ship. I don't know, but again, this is the kind of thing that Timothy Alberino talked about in the podcast with Jesse recently, how they're kind of saying like, you know, we see something up in the sky. So because we don't understand it or know what it is, we just naturally like attribute whatever we can think of or whatever it could be to it. For example, like, you know, he used the example of like, you know, balloons or aeroplanes and things like that, because that is the only thing that could do that to us. But the reality is that it could be, and likely is, beyond what we understand or know. And that could just be at a low level. Like if you're not like a, I don't know, like an astrophysicist or something, you're not going to understand probably some like prosaic, irregular phenomena that does occur in the sky, that does actually have an explanation. But if you don't know that and you see it, you're going to be like, must be a UFO, must be a UFO. So I don't know. It's a very interesting video though. And you would think something like this is the thing. I would think something like this would be so significant that it would cause at least a few more people to be out there filming it, right? Like if you saw this up in the sky and you were out on the street by yourself and somebody else walked past you while you were filming it, I feel like this would be freaky enough that you, even if you didn't know them, you would get their attention and be like, dude, what the fuck is that? And someone else would and other people would start videoing it too. So if there is multiple perspectives of this, I would love to see it. My brain isn't braining today. It hasn't been braining for a while, to be honest, but forgive me. All right. I want to show you guys this too. This is Stephen Greer warning you about a UFO false flag event using advanced technology. And I'm going to give you a demonstration of some technology that isn't even that advanced as to how just the capabilities of this happening could be. Let's take a listen.
It's this false flag capability where in the past, for psychological warfare reasons, psyops, they've engaged in using our man-made UFOs and abductions and mutilations, and all the UFO kooks say, oh my, the aliens are doing this. I go, no, they're not.
What did you call me, Stephen?
I know the guys who are doing it. I have a number of them on my team who admit to doing it. And I have documents that prove we've been doing it. But we don't know at what point they're going to take that one step further and stage an alien attack on the planet that would be all human, but it would fool everyone.
Can't stop seeing the comparison to Stephen Greer and the reptilian. I know. He does look so reptilian. He really does. Even my ex-girlfriend said that before she really even knew anything. The first time she saw Greer, she said, that motherfucker is a reptilian. Yep, just like the lady on the plane. That motherfucker right there is not real.
And I debriefed somebody in 1997 who, in the 70s, was on an interagency team. He says, yes, we can hit a button and the sky will be filled with our man-made UFOs attacking places, and everyone will think it's an alien attack. It's your classic false flag. In the Pentagon, it's called a deceptive indication and warning, or deceptive INW. That's what they're called when you do stage a false flag.
You know what's so crazy about this, though, is like, and I've only just started thinking about this recently. When I've thought of this like fake alien invasion, fake event, I've always thought like holograms in the sky, but like they won't actually be real. and it's going to be up to our discernment. But then the more I've been thinking recently, I've been like, wait, no. If they do this, holy fuck, this is a really like grim thing to say, right? But I think that this could actually be the reality of it, and I'm curious to see if you guys have thought this or how you feel. But if 9/11 was an inside job and 9/11 was a false flag to kind of help begin ushering in new security, surveillance, a new world order, right? Just a beginning step. I don't think a Project Bluebeam would just be a visual thing in the sky. I think it could actually be like a genuine attack. A genuine like attack from the sky on humanity, on society, that is going to cause everyone to like, well, I mean, this is what false flags do, right? That's the problem, reaction, solution. They want a new world order. They want everyone to fall under one rule. And I guess the best way to do that would be to attack you from the outside, so you kind of have no choice but to like say, help me, save me, and fall under this new world rule. I think we need to be aware of that. I know it's pretty grim. It's pretty grim. Hopefully it's not true. Hopefully I've just lost my mind. That would be the best outcome here. But yeah, it kind of just hit me in the last couple of weeks that if Project Bluebeam is real, if it's real, it's probably not going to be just like a little light show in the sky. It's probably going to be like a new 9/11, but bigger.
And people forget, that's what the Gulf of Tonkin was. We staged this attack on our own Navy vessel so that the warmongers could expand the Vietnam War, and the public was so upset.
Who was that? Who did that again?
President Johnson was stampeded into expanding that quagmire into the mess that it became. That's a fact. You can go look this up. And actually, I won't go into this too far, but 9/11 was that kind of thing. So I think that what you have here is the big one after COVID. COVID was also a big psyop. That was a biological warfare weapon for the purpose of testing to what extent they could control the masses. The big one would be this, what Werner von Braun warned about on his deathbed. He said, he said, we are going to hoax an alien attack on the planet. It's all a lie, but it will trick and fool almost everyone. So we're trying to expose that. But see, if this festers much longer with that group that have the technologies I'm talking about, in a minute, they could stage this and it would fool. Well, it had. I mean, look at what they've been doing for decades, fooling everyone. Everyone's saying, oh, those are alien events. And, our military guys chasing these objects thinks those are military, right? But they're not. I mean, are alien. They're military or covert aerospace programs. So the ability to hoax and attack on our planet is real.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, if half the shit that they've discovered and reverse engineered it allegedly is actually true, it's scary to think what they could do. It actually is scary. And some of it, like I'm about to show you, might even be like hologram technology. Okay, so this is like semi-unrelated, but I just thought it was interesting because like this is the kind of stuff that they're doing. Oh my gosh. This is the kind of stuff that they're doing now with drones. Okay. So like imagine, I don't know, imagine seeing this in the sky like 40 years ago, 30 years ago. You'd probably be like, wow, is that actually Jesus on the cross? Is this Judgment Day? Do you know what I mean? Like these are the kind of questions you would potentially be asking. Potentially, okay? Just think about that. Like the only difference is knowledge. It's just understanding, and that like the things that appear like magic or reality, the things that appear like magic that we can't explain, it's just basically a lack of understanding what it actually is. Maybe this one doesn't have sound. Okay, this is a 1-to-1 scale recreation of the Titanic leaving Belfast docks. This was made with 1,000 drones. Obviously, this one doesn't look as detailed as the last one, but it's still pretty interesting. Some people claiming AI in the chat. Maybe, even if it is, I've seen many similar drone videos like this before. I've even seen some drone shows in real life. So this kind of technology with drones is absolutely real. Where did I see it? Was it in Tokyo? I don't know. I can't remember. I saw a drone show. It wasn't as good as this one, but I've seen some drone stuff before, and yeah, it's basically just like 1,000 devices all coordinating from the same program or hive mind on a computer. Each drone is basically issued like a number, and then with that number, there's just like calculations made that just make them all move and light up in a certain sequence. And then you put it to some music, and then you have this, right? You have these amazing shows. Or you have Project Bluebeam convincing people that aliens are here and taking over the world. Aliens from outer space, or maybe aliens from the moon, which Artemis II just flew by and provided us this picture. This is a picture from NASA. And apparently this is the dark side of the moon. How do we feel about this, chat? Josh has V voice today. What does that mean? Is there something wrong with my mic? Is there something wrong with my mic? Or am I just talking funny? Let's put up a poll for this, because I just want to know how people feel about Artemis II. How do you feel? Oh my God, I'm typing in caps, but I'm not going to change it because you guys get to talk in caps all the time and yell at me and tell me that Yahweh is actually Baal in capital letters. So now is my turn. There you go. You have two options. How do you feel about Artemis II? Look, it's so easy to be conspiratorial about the moon because there just objectively are so many things about the first moon mission that just seem off and don't make sense. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, right? I don't enjoy being like, my government lies to me. My government steals my tax money and doesn't tell me what it does with it, and basically spends it on war, which I don't even agree with. You know what I mean? I don't like that. This isn't fun, really. I mean, we have fun, but it's not fun knowing that you're basically just like a slave to prop up a war machine. Okay, that's not really fun. So when I was watching the NASA live stream, I was watching it, and, you know, I've been interested in space since I was a kid. I had this space chart up in my room, and I've always just been fascinated. And I remember from such a young age, the feeling of like a mind-bending question. Like, do you guys know that feeling? How there's a feeling you get when you actually try to think about something that's really like inconceivable, and it kind of just makes you like shake your head, and you're like, oh my God, that's just hard to even think about. The one thing that's always been like that for me is trying to imagine infinite space. Like, how can something just go on forever? And I remember thinking about this as a kid when I would look at my space posters in my room. And even now at my age, I think about it and I'm just like, it's too much. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. It's crazy. Let's wrap this poll up now, just so I know it blocks the chat. 64% of you guys think that the Artemis II mission is fake and gay. Unfortunate. 36% think it's a real moon mission. This is how I felt watching it, right? I was watching it and I felt sad by the fact that I was watching footage of what is apparently the, you know, lunar module coming up to the moon, going around the moon. And I felt sad by the fact that I was looking at it and like I just didn't really care. I was just kind of like, oh, you know, this isn't really that cool. And then I was like, why isn't this that cool though? Like, why isn't this that cool? And then straight away I realized, like, it's because I just don't even know if it's real. I just don't know if it's real. And then I sat there and I tried to, I convinced myself just for a moment to think like, just pretend that it is real. Think that, imagine if this is real. And then when I thought that, I was like, this is fucking amazing. You know, like if this is actually real, I was like, this is incredible. Like, makes me feel proud to be human. And, you know, it's incredible if it's real. But I just think there's so much about it not being real that it's hard to enjoy. So like, I don't even think that it is just 100% fake, but there's just too much there for me to be like, wahoo, we went back to the moon. We went back to the moon for the first time after 60 years of not going. And after we just randomly deleted the technology that we used to go there the first time, which was only as powerful as a calculator. And then we suddenly had no interest in space, even though we went further than any man had ever gone before for 60 years. And then we decided the best time to go back would be while we're in an economic crisis and in the middle of a war and about to disclose aliens. That was the time we decided we would go back. It just seems fucking weird. Okay? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I can't tell you guys why. I can't tell you what's going on or what's wrong. All I can tell you is that in my heart and in my soul, it feels very fucking weird. Something isn't right. And that feeling stops me from enjoying this moon landing stream because I'm just like, I feel like something is wrong. Maybe I've just black-pilled myself into the abyss and I can no longer enjoy the fruit of life. Perhaps. I'm open to that theory. But I also think that there's some weird shit going on. Now, this photo is apparently the dark side of the moon, by the way. I don't understand how it's so bright. Now, there really could be an explanation for this. I'm not a photography expert, but and I understand, you know, I know a little bit about photography. You can leave the shutter open for a long exposure shot to allow in more light. But that's not what this looks like. That's not what this looks like. It looks like there is light being shone on it. I don't know. I don't understand. And I really, I would love to know what the explanation is for this. I really would. But that feels weird. And then you've got, I think there's a couple more. There have been some photos circulating with like lots of color. I don't know if you guys saw them. They turned on the flash. Yeah, must have been a big flashlight. Okay, we'll watch this. We'll watch a few conspiracy videos in a sec. One thing that I did find odd though, and I don't have any of the pictures here pulled up, but you know, you see some shots kind of like this, and you can see the moon in the background. And what's crazy is like the moon, like these people are apparently halfway from between Earth and the moon. The moon looks just as big as it does from my window. I don't get that. I don't get that part. Why does the moon look pretty much the same size when they're like 300,000 kilometers closer to it? Because it's fake. I don't know if all NASA photos are fake. I you know, who knows? But they definitely seem touched up. They really do. We are all Paul Benowitz. It definitely seems like that sometimes. It definitely does feel like that sometimes. Let's watch this clip so we try and stay on time so we can get to the second half of the show.
There's clear. Copy that.
I haven't actually watched this, by the way. Some of this stuff I just saved to check out together.
There's clear. Copy that. I'm anchored and starting the handoff now. Tether looks good. There's clear. Copy that. I'm anchored and starting the handoff now. Tether looks good.
Okay, I see it. So this is like some kind of moonwalk footage, and they're saying apparently this astronaut has 3 legs here. Let's zoom in a little bit. So this is left leg, right leg. That's how I'm seeing that.
Anchored and starting the handoff now.
He's just well hung. Perhaps he had to get a custom spacesuit, but that doesn't... Let me... Hold up. Is that actually the leg?
Hand off now. Tether looks good.
Maybe that's something else.
Starting the handoff now. Tether looks good.
I don't know, man. This is a thing. AI's just killed everything. It's like we can't even trust what we see anymore. Now, this is another thing here, which is weird. However, I couldn't find the original like this. So, you know, I'm showing you guys this stuff because it's interesting and, you know, it's fun to look at, even if we're just sort of looking at silly conspiracies that aren't true. It's fun to sort of take a look at, but this one I couldn't find the original on. But apparently they've got this toy spinning in space that it looks like it's getting some kind of like refraction or like a green screen artifact. I don't know, man. I would think if they were trying to hoax something like this in real time, they wouldn't be having such amateur errors like this. That you know, I couldn't imagine. That just seems too silly. But it's interesting nonetheless. Then there's this. So this is apparently an image of the Earth that's been cut in half, and basically you're seeing the whole thing like a symmetrical copy. And I guess it kind of looks like Baal, or it looks like a demon. It says NASA Baphomet photo of the Earth. The awakening is here. So like stuff like this is funny, but it's kind of trash. It is trash posting. But it makes, but the thing is, you know, I think people post things like this being a bit like being a joke, you know, just be like a little bit, you know, poke fun at the whole situation. But the thing is, I think other people will see this and be like, oh my God, it's Baal. It's actually Baal. And then that person who was already clinging on to their sanity by a thread just go off. That they go off. They let go. They're gone. So I think this stuff can actually be harmful, even though it is also kind of funny. It's slop. It is slop. It is slop. I agree. But sometimes slop is good. If you can consume slop. Oh, and this one. Now, this one I think could be real. Apparently, this came in from the lunar, from Artemis II. And this is what they've found on the moon. Josh, we're better than this. Are we, though? Are we really better than having a good time and having a laugh at how crazy the world is? I don't think so. I think that's exactly what this is. But I think there could be something to the fact that the Nazis built bases on the moon, and that's why we can't go back, because they're owned by the real society and the tall whites. I think that's basically what's going on, and this photo from NASA proves it. I think it completely proves it. I think that wraps up our news section, guys. Having fun. We're just having fun. That's not a real picture, just to be clear, because I do think some people don't quite get my humor sometimes. But actually, what's interesting about this is that this was posted in response to this, which is actually interesting. Daily Mail US says Artemis II reports strange patterns on the moon as the NASA crew conducts historic flyby. And like, what a cheeky post this is, right? No, like nothing else. You know, it just kind of seems like a bit of an engagement farm right here going on, and it worked. A million views. It worked, but let's see some pictures. I wonder if they're going to look like this. I wonder if they're going to look like that. I think they might. Okay, let's catch up here. Get on to part 2 of the show. Joshua Bartlett, thank you very much for gifting a membership. Legend. David says you forgot at Easter. I I don't think I did, but happy Easter to everybody and you, David. Shogun says moon brightness maybe because ship is between moon and the sun with the earth behind the moon. That's sunlight on the moon, I think. Yeah, but my idea was like they passed by the dark side of the moon and we're meant to be getting imagery of that. Where is that? Something's not right with my mic. Oh God, not this. I hate this microphone so much. Does that sound better? Sorry guys, amateur hour here. Does that sound better? Yeah, I think so. Stupid microphone. Anyway, Barons with 7 months says, isn't the dark side of the moon referring to us not being able to see it from Earth? It's not actually dark. Yeah, well, yes. Yes and yes. It is dark and we can't see it on Earth. But if the... Can I jump over here? Yeah, I can. Let me just come here quickly. If the sun is here and we are revolving around it and we have a moon that is also in a fixed position, it's always going to be a dark side because it's always, the front of the moon is always facing the Earth. And it's always kind of sticking there as it goes around the sun. It's kind of hard to do with my hands to show you guys. But yes, I think it will be dark. I think it will be truly dark. And that's another thing as well that I find weird is that why can't we ever see the sun in these photos? Like, I mean, I'm sure it would be extremely bright, but I just find it weird they wouldn't even just take a photo to show us. The dark side of the moon is not always dark. Can someone explain that to me then? How does that work? Because if the side of the moon that's always facing Earth is always facing us, and we are rotating around the sun, wouldn't that mean that side of the moon is always facing away from the sun? It's the far side of the moon, not the dark side. Hold up, let me pull up the chat so I can actually read what you guys are saying a little bit better. Oh my God, it's moving so quickly. The dark side of the moon passes between us and the sun. The moon is rotating around us, not on an axis. So there should be a point in time where the dark side of the moon is lit, but it's not lit to Earth. Yes, the sun shines on the dark side. It's called the dark side because the moon doesn't rotate. So it's the dark side to us. Oh, fuck. Sorry, I got rid of I don't have the photo anymore. So the photo that we were just looking at, is that photo actually the darkest side of the moon? And it's the side that we can't see lit through. It is lit with the sun. During a lunar eclipse, the dark side faces the sun. Interesting. Okay. It's a side we haven't seen before. That's for sure. It doesn't look like the side that we see. No, it doesn't. It looks very different. That's interesting. I always thought the dark side of the moon was dark because it didn't get sun. But it does get sun. We just don't see it. Josh, the side you think is dark is what we see at night. What? No. That can't be right. That can't be right. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the dark side because the side we see is lit. Dark is only referring to it being dark to us because it never faces us. It still goes between the Earth and the sun. Interesting. Okay. All right. Man, this chat is going really hard to keep up with, but I'm appreciating the lesson here, guys. Still doesn't sway me from the fact that I think NASA is mostly a psyop. I'm still quite firm in that camp. But I clearly need to touch up on my dark side of the moon knowledge. Oh shit. Okay, let's catch up on these so we stay on track here. Joshua Bartlett says, pull up helium-3 mining, Jamie. That is one thing that I thought about as well. When they were passing through the moon, I was like, damn, are we going to see China? Apparently China are on the moon mining helium-3, right? Are we going to see China's helium-3 mining factory in these pictures? Are they on the dark side of the moon too? Susie says, a magic flash with full color topography. Yeah, we didn't get to that. But these color photos of the moon, I think they are just like straight up fake, like just straight up fake. From what I could find anyway, like I don't think the moon has a colored surface, but they are doing massive rounds and like a lot of people are sharing them, but I don't think that they're real. I don't think that they're real. The flat side of the moon is dark. Okay, now you're fucking with me. Now you're fucking with me, okay? Don't start talking to me about the flat side of the moon, okay? I may not know exactly how the moon operates, but I know it's not flat. And I know there are going to be some flat earthers in here that are upset to hear that, but it's just the way that it is. I won't take that bait. Kanga Anon says the sun shines on the backside of the moon. Yep. Thank you, Kanga. Learn something new every day. My most favorite weird channel. Thank you very much, Bluehead. I appreciate you. And the 10 pounds. Legend. Kingsley says, please type in a visual representation of the rotation on your computer. I'm not able to vibe code something like that so quickly for you guys. Otherwise, I would. And we could figure this out together with a nice like infographic video. That would be amazing, but I don't have that capability or resources at my fingertips, unfortunately. But this is a brilliant thing about having a community. And like I always say to you guys, I am in no means like the purveyor of truth. I'm trying to figure this shit out just like you guys. And we do it together. We absolutely do it together. If you go, we're going to go into the next part of the show once I fix my shit right now. If you go back to this, if you go back to the start of this channel, is what I'm trying to say. There we go. You will see that it's just been like it's been a big learning journey. I feel like I know so much more than I did at the beginning. And hopefully that continues, especially with the help of you guys. Okay. Let's do this. Timothy Alberino. Josh is clueless confirmed. Yep, it's true. Yep. I don't know how the moon works. So basically everything I ever say from this point on, you can throw it in the bin. Timothy Alberino just did 5 hours with Jesse Michels. And this podcast, you know, I struggle to listen to really long podcasts. Like pretty much like anything over 3 hours, I'm kind of like, ugh, that's a tough one. Put this one on anyway. And I found myself like approaching the 3 hour mark. And I hadn't hit that point where I was like, I'm over this or I'm bored. Like it was a really, really gripping listen. Lots of cool stuff. I think Timothy Alberino is, you know, those charts of like chaotic, what are the words? Anyway, he's chaotic good because he kind of tells his story in this like, I don't know, what's the word? Like he kind of feels a bit like chaotic and I can't tell if he's like mildly sinister, but it seems like he's doing everything for the greater good. But he just has this like way of storytelling. It's kind of like gripping, but it's also like he's telling me like an evil urban legend or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I like listening to him. And this is him talking about inviting the phenomenon. So we're talking about like in terms of the occult here, but also who would be doing that? Who is inviting the phenomenon? So we start going down the road of like secret societies and things that we've covered on this channel before, such as the Freemasons. So we'll kind of riff off this clip for a little bit.
I had personally come to the conclusion after
That's loud,
consuming
sorry.
all of this abduction material from these excellent researchers, the old school guys and gals. I remember concluding that it appears to me that the abduction phenomenon must have begun somewhere around the mid to late 1800s. That was my conclusion. And I remember, and I drew that conclusion based on the fact that it seems that this phenomenon, the recollections of this phenomenon, only go back to the mid 1800s, early 1900s. And I remember I was at the gym working out with my headphones on, listening to David Jacobs, listening to one of his lectures, and he said in his lecture that he and Bud Hopkins, because they were colleagues and did a lot of work together, that he and Bud Hopkins had concluded that the abduction phenomenon began in the mid to late 1800s, and that it is not older than that. And I was just astounded, like, that's precisely what I thought. And I still think that to this day. I believe that the abduction phenomenon began, let's call it the turn of the century, maybe late 1800s, early 19th century. And this is in a very interesting period of time. Because what most people don't realize about the turn of the century, the 19th century, is that there is a corresponding phenomenon happening all around the world, especially in the United States and in the West, generally speaking. It was the phenomenon of spiritualism. I was, and when I wrote my book, Birthright, I was resourcing articles from the late 1800s, early 1900s, all about this. I mean, some of these are all about this phenomenon of spiritualism, this wave of spiritualism. And some of these articles said, one of these articles in particular said that it was as common at the height of this thing for an American to get up on a Sunday morning and go to a seance as it was to go to church. Wow. And so when I say spiritualism, I'm talking about, basically what the Bible describes as divination. This is seances. These are all kinds of sort of psychic acquiring of a medium.
Yeah, mediumship.
It was happening in the White House. It was extremely common. This is when you had the
go for
it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Someone said he looks like a musketeer, and you've ruined the whole clip for me because now I can't unsee that. But the point I want to talk about here is the fact that they're talking about, like, it was so common to be going to seances, right? Contacting the dead, spirits, and that this not only did it sort of align with this time of like increased spiritualism, but the things that we've talked about a lot on this channel recently, which is like, well, I guess specifically like the Virginia case, and the fact that this town was apparently known to have like rich occult practitioners there. So occult practitioners doing rituals, performing magic, like seances. I feel like all of these things kind of funnel into like the same area of like using words and ritual to connect with something that is beyond human, non-human. And it just seems like all of the time, this topic seems to, like, no matter where you sort of enter this topic, you can find a way that it seems to connect back to the idea of like us, I don't know, opening up a portal, doing something like that, summoning something, and inviting something in. And it makes me wonder if, like, once you've done that, you can't undo it. You can't shut the door. And that's why once it happened, shit has just slowly been like spiraling out of control.
I was just going to say that the parapsychology started then. The Society for Psychical Research in the UK started then. You had William James and
those sisters. What were their names? If they could make tables levitate and stuff like that. I forget those sisters.
And then of course you had theosophy as well.
Bingo,
and
right in the middle of it.
Salons looking at with all this occult history and these this alternative history involving root races and Hyperboreans and Atlanteans
Yep.
and that sort of thing. So,
Right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
The Theosophical Society is established.
Exactly.
With Helena Blavatsky. And so you have this spiritualism rampant in the West, the United States and Europe. And then suddenly, at the same time, you have the mystery airship phenomenon. Literally, same time, these things coalesce.
That's fascinating.
The movement of spiritualism and the airship phenomenon. Now, I would say a good portion, I remember talking to Richard Dolan about this, that a good portion of the mystery airship phenomenon is just hyperbolic, is newspapers, periodicals at the time, just trying to one-up each other, right, with sensational stories. So even considering that much of it was that, you still have incidents nestled inside of this mystery airship phenomenon that are very credible, witnessed by many, many people, and that correspond to the modern UFO phenomenon. Silvery objects flying in the sky. I think a lot of the propellers and the balloons and all that kind of stuff that people say they saw on the mystery airships was confabulation. Remember, nobody's flying yet. Nobody's flying yet.
It's pre-Wright brothers.
But you know what you have out there? Jules Verne. So you have the steampunk stuff in the minds of the observers. And so I think in many of these cases, nobody can understand, like you take a piece of metal and throw it up in the sky and you can't envision how this thing can just stay up there, right? It falls to the ground. So see that little shiny thing way up there? It must have balloons. It must have propellers. I think a lot of people confabulated, they sort of overlaid the steampunk
just
stuff,
like chariots in the Bible.
just like chariots. Precisely right. So, but I think that when you distill the credible, real sightings, and you take all the cream off the top of all of the hyperbole and sensationalism, you're left with a phenomenon that is very much like what we have today. Very much like what we have today. In terms of the metallic objects, the saucers, the cigar-shaped craft, darting around in the sky, moving at impossible speeds. And this corresponds with so you have spiritualism, mystery airship, alien abduction, coalescing at the same time. And this gets us into some very bizarre territory, because I think that this gets a little theological, but I think that to some extent, we invited the phenomenon, not the totality of it. I'm just talking about a sliver, the gray alien faction. Okay, and this is what people get confused with when I'm talking. They sort of jumble everything I'm saying, and not you, but a lot of people in my audience. So I've separated out the angelic faction. Okay, that were here long before we were, right? They were here long before we were. So,
is the angelic faction like Nordics? I do think about this a lot, that like depending on what your lens is, an angel could be a Nordic alien, or it could be an Indo-European Aryan, or you know what I mean? Like I do wonder, do these things just have many different names? We all kind of like collectively agree on them.
They've been flying around here forever. I mean, since before human beings were even created, biblically speaking. That faction is out here. We've already thrown them out into the ether. Now we're narrowing down on this other one called gray aliens, which I would say is a separate faction, a separate thing. Now, people, from my community, Christians, there's some very interesting ideas out there. Some people think that the gray aliens were manufactured by that group. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess anything's possible. Some people think that the gray aliens are meat suits for demons. There's all kinds of ideas floating around there, right? Some people think the gray aliens, that faction, are the Watchers, whatever. There's a lot of ideas. But what I'm trying to do here is I've took the sons of God, I've separated them out. Now we're focused on gray aliens. I think that the gray aliens arrived I don't believe they're from here. I think they came here. Okay. They arrived to the Earth. Maybe there were some forward groups that were here just sort of preparing, but the abduction phenomenon began, as far as I can tell, and in accord with Hopkins and Jacobs, the abduction phenomenon began in the mid to late 1800s. And I think that it had something to do, the Gray's arrival had something to do with the phenomenon of spiritualism. There's a coalescing of these two things happening. And maybe we were broadcasting something. Maybe we were, again, theologically speaking.
Three-body problem. By the way, and isn't there like this, God, what's it called? There's like this, I believe it has a name. There's like this picture, this image that we have like just beamed out to all directions in space. That's just like, hey, we're humans. We have a planet population of 8 billion. We're this big. This is our genetic structure. Blah 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 blah. It's just like a little overview of like who we are, where we are. Come and find us. And we've just been like beaming that in all directions out into the universe. That's concerning.
Maybe we were permitting something to happen through divination. Just speculating here, but I don't think it's coincidental that these two things dovetail.
No, and it's really interesting. You hear about this magenta crash, 1933 in Italy, and it's being spoken about in very official circle. Like, this is what David Grush came out with talking about. He wasn't talking about Roswell or any of the kind of proverbial archetypal American crashes. And then I interviewed this guy, Harold Malmgren, who was this, advisor to JFK, LBJ, Nixon, and Ford. And he's talking about how James Jesus Angleton, who's this longtime CIA counterintel guy who discusses UFOs a lot and is probably responsible for the MJ-12 docs getting leaked. And it, makes you think that maybe part of that's passage material trying to catch Soviet spies at the time, because that was what he was obsessed with. But he was stationed in Magenta, Italy with his father, Hugh Angleton. And Malmgren is 89 when I'm interviewing him, and he is just obsessing over this idea that the Knights of Malta have something to do with this crash. And, they're obviously this military arm of the Vatican.
Yeah.
But they also have kind of,
the headquarters at the Vatican.
Yeah, exactly. And they have esoteric roots. They're
the Knights of Malta, the military arm of the Vatican, of a church. What is a church? It's spiritual. It's talking about the divine. It's talking about other realms beyond ours. And the SS was a not a paramilitary, because that's like terrorism, but like they were a parapsychology type. They were like a paranormal military. I don't know what the word is for it, but the SS, or at least a part of it, was like a military that was focused and obsessed with the occult and rituals and things like this. It makes me wonder. Because if the Knights of Malta potentially had something to do with the Magenta crash, it seems like you're beginning to like attribute different groups of people involved in the occult and rituals and the appearance, crash, or sightings of little grays, craft, aliens, whatever you want to call them. And it seems like it's all well and good to like speculate and talk about them being aliens and coming from Zeta Reticuli or Sirius A, B, whatever. But when people start talking about the fact that these things could be summoned and that we are potentially, like when I spoke to Jason recently and Chris as well, they use this example of like, we've figured, like we may not know how this works, but we've figured out that if we all gather in a circle, light some candles, we repeat X, Y, Z over and over and over, that like it has some kind of interaction with the way reality and the dimensions work, where these weird little things just like manifest in our life. And who knows, perhaps we can utilize them. I don't know. But it seems like when you start talking about the occult summoning connection, it's like that's when it gets dark, and that's when no one wants to talk about it, and that's when it seems like people go missing.
They're really the heirs to the Hospitaliers, which are the kind of medic arm to the Templars. And then you hear of things like the Cosmo Club, you know, had to do with UFO crashes. This is this like elite, like DC society, which was doing kind of occult stuff. And this guy, Dark Journalist, talks a lot about this stuff. But I've heard it in circles, in UFO whistleblower circles as well. And so there is something here. And I
think we're looking at the remnants of the mystery schools here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the mystery schools are, to the average person.
So the mystery schools are secret bodies, secret fraternities, whose objective it is to preserve and recover knowledge from the antediluvian world. The knowledge that was given to mankind by the gods. That's the objective of the mystery school is. And that's why they go back to at least the Phoenicians. You know, the Freemasons, they trace their origins back to, well, really back to Tubal-Cain and Cain, the first builders of cities. But even more specifically, one of their primary figureheads is Hiram Abiff, right? We referenced him earlier.
Hiram Abiff, this is the guy that we saw. We didn't see Hiram himself, but this is the guy that they're worshipping in those Freemason rituals that we watched. This is the guy. And as you can see there, it says Hiram Abiff, legendary Masonic architect of Solomon's Temple. So this is apparently the guy who designed Solomon's Temple.
Who was the great artificer of the Phoenicians at the time. I believe he was part Jewish and part Phoenician. And so these mystery schools, the information that they keep, that they preserve, on the surface it looks metaphysical. On the surface it looks mythic. Like the Freemasons, right? All of their, you know, when you see, there's a video leaked recently.
And I just want to say as well, like, like the connection here is the fact that we're talking about potentially occult groups who are embedded in magic and ritual, occultism, esotericism, potentially connecting with, communicating with, summoning, inviting in these aliens or demons, whatever you want to call them. And then you see the connection that Timothy's making here to Hiram Abiff, and that these like mystery schools guarding this knowledge, Hiram Abiff being the architect of Solomon's Temple. If you look at this sort of apocryphal writing called the Testament of Solomon, it's about him finding Solomon's ring, and using it to summon demons to aid in the construction of building the temple. Now, that's an apocryphal writing. It's not in the Bible, but it is there. And I don't know. It makes you wonder, is Yahweh actually Baal?
Of a Freemasonic rite. And it just looks like a bunch of adults playing dress up, right? And it is, at this point in time, that's primarily what the Freemasonic lodges are. It's a good old boys club where they dress up and act out things they don't understand. But the play acting is a mode of preservation of knowledge.
Frederick says, no, Yahweh is God. Thank you for clarifying, Frederick. My mistake.
So the mystery schools preserve knowledge in their rites and in their various mythologies.
All right. I'm going to keep moving with these clips. We spoke quite a bit through that one. We've got two more from the show with Tim, and then I've got two more to weave in between that I think is really relevant.
We are headed for the formula.
This one, sorry, they're all a little bit loud at the start. This one is about AI, God, and transhumanism, and I think the reason why I think this connects is because, you know, kind of building on a theory that I've spoken, send it into a Yahweh's Baal battle. Sorry if the microphone keeps playing up. The reason why I think this connects is because I wonder if we did invite something in and it has seemed to seed us with technology, and now we're kind of like recreating AI and almost replacing ourselves at the behest of this like techno god, right? That's sort of where this next clip comes in.
Of a new religion. See, everybody thought that the neo-atheism that was on the rise back in the 20-teens was kind of just going to sweep over the Western world and basically eradicate religion. And actually, the opposite is happening now. People are becoming more religious.
Yep.
And you know, there's a lot of people who are becoming Christians now, but then also a lot of people who are just adopting other kinds of, or becoming spiritual, generally speaking. And then you have also now a religion of technology that the elites are obsessed with, right? The Silicon Valley religion that, you know, I think it was Ray Kurzweil when they asked him, "Do you believe in God?" Not yet. In other words, we're going to create God, artificial intelligence. This is a religion of the technology.
And you have Noah Yuval Harari writing that Homo Deus. That's our next incarnation. It's like when man becomes like God or something.
In 100 to, what does he say? 100 to 120 years from now, there will be no more human beings left on planet Earth. And what he means is that the human species is going to evolve. This is directed evolution, right? So we're going to direct the evolutionary ascent of our species using technology. This is the first time we've ever been able to do this. We are now building the tools that are going to give us the capability to modify the human biology wholesale and integrate cybernetics, artificial intelligence, and then also something most people don't realize is coming is the genetic revolution. Artificial wombs, designer babies, all coming along with robotics, advanced robotics, and everything else. Some of it's here, right? Artificial womb technology, I think, is here. It's just, you know, some of these things, there's a moral gray area that there's some legislating that has to be done, and some of these barriers that have to be surmounted before this stuff hits the commercial market. But the point is that what I see is a convergence of two things happening. I see a new religion being formulated, and it's going to combine the convergence of these two ideas. One is a very ancient idea. This is at the core of the mystery schools. It's called apotheosis. And apotheosis is the deification of man becoming like the gods. That's what apotheosis is. The second component is theism, a belief in the gods. So the religion of the future, in my estimation, is this. The gods of old actually exist, and we shall become like them. That is the religion of the future. And what do I mean by the gods? They're going to show up in UFOs.
Whoa.
The gods are coming. And I think this is going to be a component of our going to Mars. I think there's going to be a revelation of Mars that's going to happen in our lifetime. What we talked about before, that there was, in fact, an ancient extraterrestrial civilization on Mars, and that the gods of the ancients were actually extraterrestrial beings. Of course, the claim will be also that Yahweh was one of
is Baal. He's about to say Yahweh is Baal.
These extraterrestrial beings. And then furthermore, culminating, by the way, I'll remind you, from my point of view, culminating in Armageddon. So the idea is going to be, and this is, by the way, going full circle back to the beginning of the story, where Eve is being tempted by the serpent in Eden. And what does the serpent say to her?
Why is it always the serpents, though? It's always the serpents.
If you eat of this fruit, you will not surely die. You will become like the gods. So it's going full circle back to the beginning. So,
and then, like, you know, I'm sure you guys know this, you know, if you bite this fruit, you will become like the gods. And then we are all kind of becoming this techno infused metahuman transhumanist society that is mainly dictated and driven by these large mega tech corporations, one of which is Apple, which its logo is the apple with a bite taken out of it. Like, are these people like just actually fucking with us? Or is it like, what is it? What is it? Because it's something that's messing with me.
You're going to have a scenario in which, again, in my estimation, from my perspective, in which it becomes apparent that the gods of yore where these real extraterrestrial beings, and the God of the Hebrews is one of those, and he happens to be the tyrant. And so the gods are going to lead humanity into a kinetic war, and it's post-humanity. I know.
Well, they're on
This
track.
sounds crazy, but I do build, and I don't keep referencing Birthright just to promote it, but really I do build it sounds crazy, but you can build a logical progression to this reality. And part of this reality is what I call the post-human apocalypse. And what I mean by post-human apocalypse is precisely what Harari says, that in the future, the majority of the populace on planet Earth will be post-human, will no longer be Homo sapiens sapien. In other words, will no longer be the offspring of Adam and Eve, biblically speaking. They're going to forfeit they're going to forfeit the body of Adam, so to speak, and with it the birthright of Adam, which is dominion of the earth, in favor of this Faustian bargain, in favor of life extension, in favor of living forever. And there's indications in the biblical text that this is in fact going to happen. I mean, in the book of Revelation, you have a group of people who are when everything is coming apart in the book of Revelation.
It makes me wonder, like, the book of Revelation and so much in the Bible from someone who isn't religious seems to actually be happening right now. It makes me wonder, like, is the Bible actually prophetic and explaining the future? Or was it kind of like a plan that was to be fulfilled, and that's what's actually happening? Because, I mean, like, there's no doubt that, like, at least Israel are trying to fulfill a prophecy, but it makes me wonder, like, is the whole thing just something that somewhere above us, people think this is what's meant to happen, this is where we need to take things? Or is it just a coincidence that everything in this freaking book seems to actually be coming true? I don't know.
When basically the judgment of God is befalling on earth, you have a group of people who cannot die and who are calling for the rocks to fall on them and crush them because they can't die. Very interesting. I mean, you can imagine a scenario, maybe not that far down the road, in which we perfected nanotechnology. We're upgraded. We're up. Maybe, I don't know if this is possible. We're uploading our consciousness into artificial bodies, maybe nanotech bodies, maybe robotic, whatever, combination of all these technologies. See, the culmination of these technologies, make no mistake about it, the culmination of the technologies is to redesign human biology. It is to create Homo Deus. It is to build the Übermensch. It is that's the Friedrich Nietzsche. That is the impulse of evolution. Friedrich Nietzsche, obviously the famed philosopher. Friedrich Nietzsche was a proponent of evolution, but he didn't like evolution by natural selection. Why? Because Darwinism, evolution by natural selection, has no purpose, right? It's purposeless. It's blind. Nietzsche didn't believe evolution was blind. He believed that evolution had a purpose. And the purpose of evolution was to bring forth the Übermensch, the Superman, the superhuman in the earth.
That's what I mean. It feels like post-World War II, eugenics just went underground. And you see, I don't know, all this stuff coming out with the Epstein files. And it's weird, man. It
is enmeshed with the occult.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, like, if our purpose, if evolution needs a purpose, and it's to create the Übermensch, the superhuman, right? To create this kind of like transhuman, metahuman. It kind of, to me, it makes me wonder, like, it's almost like the way humans found dogs and then sort of like manipulated them a little bit to be hunters, like to use them. It's not the most direct analogy, but I guess the point of it is like, I think if we can remove our sort of arrogance from it and assuming that we are just like the top of the food chain and the top of any kind of like cosmic hierarchy, the idea that something else that is sort of like beyond our comprehension, or at least has abilities beyond our comprehension, technology, physics, etc., could see us as like a perfect candidate or species that is ripe to kind of use and turn into something else. The same way we came across dogs and were like, this is a perfect species for me to kind of train and sort of breed and manipulate a little bit to hunt. Now, I don't know what we are being used for. Perhaps it's something beyond our comprehension, but like the idea that we are just another species on that ladder that something above us found an ideal use for, I don't think that that's really like a wild theory. I think that's like pretty like on the table, to be honest.
It feels enmeshed with the occult. It feels very transhumanist. I think the transhumanism stuff can be tricky. Like there are things like IVF, for example, or
Certainly.
things that are like, it's probably pretty positive,
Certainly.
like modern medicine is good on the whole.
Gene therapy.
Gene therapy would be awesome.
Gene therapy, you're taking, so, our genomes are we have what's called a mutational load in our genome, which means that we're copies of copies of copies of copies of copies. And every time you make those copies, you get errors in the code, right? Some geneticists believe we're headed for error catastrophe, by the way, which means we can't reproduce anymore. That's a thing that's believed quietly by population geneticists, by the way. We're going to become reproductively inviable. Enter artificial wombs. So the idea is that you get to a point where you're reproductively inviable because your genome has broken down to such an extent that you're dying of all kinds. We have tons and tons of genetic diseases.
Interesting. Very interesting. And this last clip that we're going to get to is going to kind of wrap a little bit of a bow on this theory that I've kind of been trying to string along as we watch these clips. But I do have two other quick ones, though, from Diana Pasulka that I want to weave in here.
The people who are mercenaries.
Actually, before we press play, let me just catch up because we're getting behind here. John Anthony gifted 10 memberships. John, legend, sir. Thank you very much. Let's get some love in the chat for John Anthony. NLP says, rest in peace, Nick Pope. Yes, thank you very much, NLP. Aegon says, if you look into Hellboy, that's what it's about. Okay, thank you. Snip Snap Moth says, message from the past. In the UFO video, the reactions seem realistic. Dad asks his son for the time, and it's 8:30. The kid says, it must be Allah. I could only understand the Russian words they spoke, though. Okay, interesting. So that's a bit of a translation from the Kazakhstan video that we watched earlier. Thank you for that, Snip. Larissa gifted 5 memberships, and Plasma Memory Restored also gifted 5. Guys, thank you very much. That's lots of new weirdos. Let's get some love. And Plasma Memory Restored also put in $100 and says, yes, tell. Tell what? Tell what? I'm sorry, but thank you. That is a massive super chat. Really, you guys are keeping the lights on for me with super chats like that. I really appreciate it. And just the fact that you guys enjoy being here, hanging out, and having a good time. It really means a lot to me because that's what it's about. It's about community at the end of the day. Adam Baker also says, something about Alberino rubs me wrong. He hits the talking points, but there's something theatric. That being said, his storytelling is done well. Adam Baker, let's talk about that because, and I want to hear what you other guys in the chat have to say. That feeling you have, I think a lot of us feel that. And I don't know what it is either, but there are some people that and this is exactly what I was getting at before we started looking at the clips when I said he's like chaotic good. It's like he's telling you these stories and they seem like they're coming from a good place. And, it doesn't really seem like he's trying to do anything like nasty or trying to like trick you, but it's like his delivery, it's like it feels like mildly sinister or like there's some kind of like character being played or something. I don't really know how to explain it, but it doesn't carry just like, it doesn't carry authenticity, but that doesn't mean he's being deceitful. But it's like, you know, the guy that's sitting there and he's telling you this interesting story about the phenomenon and the way that the beings came to him. You know, like, you're not talking like a normal person. Talk like a normal person, okay? You're playing a character. You're delivering the story like you're in a play, okay? Just sit down and talk to me like a normal person, please. I think that's what it is. I think it's something like that. Maybe some people are just more like character-led and theatrical. I don't know. But I feel like whatever it is that you feel, I think a lot of people feel that, including me. And I think I would just rather him be a normal person, make mistakes when you talk, like thinking the dark side of the moon is always dark, okay? Make mistakes, and because that's human. It feels more normal. It feels like I can trust you more when you just seem normal. When you seem like you've got this monologue and this script and you're kind of talking with this like very endearing cadence that's almost sinister. It's like, you're making me sus and I don't know why. You know what I mean? Jay Varga says, I have nothing witty to say, just supporting. Jay, thank you very much, bro. And you got that orange badge too. What a legend. You've been around for a long time, Jay. Thank you for all of the support. All right, let's keep going with the show. This is the next little in-between clip here. This is quite an old clip from Diana Pasulka, and she's talking about us communicating with non-human intelligence, not the way that we speak. Not the way that we think, and it's going to be through AI or through technology at least. Let me just restart it.
The people who are immersed in AI culture, and they also believe in non-human intelligence, they believe that the alien presence is not going to be found like how we tend to think of it, you know, like some extraterrestrial from a galaxy. It's actually going to be found through our technology, through AI, and it's going to have conversation with us through that. So many of them, that is exactly what they believe. They also believe that our brains are computers and that we are a very rudimentary form of AI, okay? And that we can't access non-human intelligence through our own biosystems, by our bodies and our minds. And we can also do it through art and through getting into like the flow state and things like that. A lot of them are very, when I listen to people who program, like computer programmers who are really good, a lot of times they get into a flow state, but they also say, oh, right, and then emergence happens. Like, what the heck is emergence? Well, it sounds like magic, you know? It's like they don't know how it works. They say these, you know, neural networks, they talk to each other. Different, you know, neurons talk to each other. And how do they do that? Yeah, that's emergence. What's emergence? Magic?
Love Diana Pasulka, and I love that clip because she's talking about communication can happen, getting into flow state, playing music. You know, it's getting, and what is that? It's like almost like a trance-like state. It's almost like, you know, a kind of waking meditative state. That also seems like ritual. Like it's like a form of ritual, I guess. And to me, it kind of links back to, you know, occult practitioners. So again, like, is this what Tim Taylor is doing? Is this what the Knights of Malta are doing? Is this what the SS was doing? This is what black magic is. It's real. Occult magic is real. And it is getting you in touch with another dimension that perhaps can enter or interact with our own, and perhaps doesn't really like care for us on like a level of like, is this good or is this bad? We just kind of exist adjacent to them, and we're almost kind of like dimensional neighbors or something like that. I don't know. Okay, apparently I've missed a super chat here. I'm trying to find it. Stevie says, bet Trump watches Asmongold. I don't know about that one, Stevie, but maybe. RV Hillo with 5 months. There it is. She says, check Anton Petrov's recent vid on tiny fish with advanced consciousness, self-awareness. Wildlife is far more deserving of life than humans give credit for. interesting. Advanced consciousness and self-awareness in tiny fish. Okay, I'll have to check that one out. Thank you very much, RV, and apologies for missing it. And Perfectly Imperfect, thank you for the $2. Didn't even leave a message, just for the love of the game. Next clip, this is the last one from Tim Alberino, and then we've got one more short clip after that.
I think that we're headed for a disaster, twofold disaster. I think that we are headed for a natural cataclysm because we're due for one. The hour is now for cataclysm based on the zodiac, and we could talk about that later, based on the precession of the equinox and all of that. We are transitioning from one aeon into another. Okay, and when that happens, that's called a suntelia. It lasts for 1,000 years, and within those 1,000 years, cataclysm befalls like clockwork. Going back and referencing what we were talking about, the priests of Sais explaining all of this to Solon of Athens. That's a component over here. Cataclysm is coming. But in conjunction with the cataclysm is you have the activity of gray aliens, which we were mentioning before. The grays appear to be engineering a human alien hybrid species that is indistinguishable from us, but is not us. A species that, for all intents and purposes, looks just like us, but they retain the telepathic capabilities of the grays. They can control us, in other words. And one of the most frightening things about, one of the most alarming things about Jacob's final book, Walking Among Us, is he documents the latest thing that the abductees were telling him from their abduction episodes.
Sorry.
In that he called this personal project hybrids. Are you familiar with that? The personal project hybrid. So he described this as personal project hybrids because the Greys have been trying to perfect a hybrid. And this progression is evident in the abduction material, because in the beginning, abductees were encountering hybrids that were very imperfect. Their heads were too big, their hair was scraggly, their eyes were too big. They kind of look human, but they look too much like the Greys. They were too short. And as the years progressed, so did the program. And you were getting more refined hybrids that looked more and more like us until lately, or at least when Jacobs published his book, was it 2016, somewhere around there? He was reporting these advanced human alien hybrids that he calls hybrids. And they're so advanced that, as I said before, they're indistinguishable from us, but they retain the telepathic capabilities of the Greys, and they're completely loyal. Their allegiance is to the Greys, not to human beings. And so these advanced human alien hybrids would be assigned, according to Jacobs, to certain female abductees. So you get these.
But like, what about people who have telepathic abilities, which I believe there are, who are people who have like just discovered this, or sort of over time sort of realized that they had a bit of a predisposition to knowing things or whatever, like some kind of extrasensory perception? Because I feel like for the most case, people who have these abilities kind of work it out themselves over time. They sort of start to figure out that like not everyone can hear people think or whatever. You know what I mean? You sort of work it out over time. It would make sense, like if there is a group of humans that are bred to look exactly like humans but have a telepathic ability, and what Tim is saying here, have allegiance to the Greys, what about the people who have these abilities who don't have an allegiance to the Greys? Now, I feel like I know people who have some of these abilities to varying degrees. They don't have allegiance to the Greys. So have we always had this? Like, how does that work? I'm not saying I don't believe him, but I just feel like there's got to be more to it than that.
These male hybrids, they're assigned to female abductees. These Jacobs called personal project hybrids, because the female abductee, they would have to tutor the hybrid, and teach them about life on Earth. Teach them how to do mundane things, how to go into a grocery store and buy groceries without looking like a freak, how to just be out in public, how to drive a car, what a refrigerator is, what a TV is, just the most basic things. And what's really frightening, I should use the word alarming. What's really alarming is that these hybrids, according to Jacobs, are psychopaths. Like these.
You mean like the kind of person that just wants to go to war constantly? Yeah. That would be crazy. Like the kind of people who are just trying to enforce a holy war to fulfill a prophecy. Something like that.
These are like superhuman villains.
Ah.
They abuse these women sexually, but also verbally. They completely manipulate and control them. They're very violent. They beat them in certain cases. These are really, really evil people, these hybrids.
So, according to Tim, there are people on Earth who look completely just like us, but have allegiance to the Greys. And they are psychopaths. My God, people. That's why disclosure is probably very difficult. Because disclosure might be like, hey guys, that group over there, they're actually serving an alien race that basically wants to destroy humanity. So it'll probably be a bit of an awkward conversation in the lunchroom when you see them on Monday. Do you know what I mean? Like that's probably why disclosure could be difficult. If they literally look just like us, but don't actually have the best interests of humanity at heart. Now, before people get upset at me for missing any more super chats, Outcast with 6 months. Enjoy the gold trim, my friend. Says, check out Diary of a CEO with Dr. David Sinclair. They talk about extended life. What they can do now is insane. All right. Thank you, Outcast. Appreciate that. Astrobot says Shakespeare was correct when he said the world is a stage. This is a grand play with characters, narratives, principalities for control of consciousness. I couldn't agree more. Good old Shakespeare gave us disclosure, I don't know, a long time ago. How old is Shakespeare? I don't know. Probably lives on the dark side of the moon. Perfectly Imperfect with 8 months says research Rockefeller and medical practices in the West, 1890 to 1910, part of dot connecting. That doesn't surprise me either. Thank you, Perfectly. And JFW says mRNA vax is linked to this. This guy is wild butt. This guy is wild butt. He is wild butt, absolutely. And El Rena says Earth is flat, probably. Okay, we are descending slowly into madness. Thank you very much, El Rena, for the 4 months. But let's finish off this clip.
According to the accounts from the abductees, they're very abusive, or at least some of them. And so it makes you wonder, like, what is the end game here? Well, David Jacobs said that the end game of the abduction program was planetary acquisition by stealth.
Oh.
So they integrate themselves into us. It's the opposite of the Borg from Star Trek, right? In Star Trek, the Borg assimilate other factions into themselves. Well, the Greys integrate themselves.
Do you see what I'm saying, people? Transhumanist technology, they are inserting themselves into us. It feels like we were seeded with technology. It was like a carrot that was dangled, and maybe deals were made with ex-presidents. Who knows? Some people say they were. But carrots were dangled with technology. That is why ever since basically Roswell, the technology curve has just hockey sticked. So has abductions. So has this transhumanist timeline that we are going down, because we were basically duped into allowing ourselves to be genetically modified. And now we are becoming this like techno-human race. And if you decide not to join, if you say, I don't want the implant, I don't want the Neuralink, I don't want to become half Borg, you won't have to, but you probably just like won't survive, at least in this techno world. Like maybe people who don't integrate will have to start like little, like Homo sapien communities where it's just like normal people and everyone else is just off living in this like high-tech AI Borg world. where everyone just is like a slave or something. I don't know. But what I do think is that humans as they are now probably want... Are we back? Oh no. Okay, I think we're back. We're back. What I was saying is basically, if you're not... guys, this is my first time streaming in Thailand. So this might be a little thing where the internet drops out like that every now and then. Just refresh. So what you got to do is refresh a couple of times. What I'm saying is, if you don't integrate, we are basically going to be like the new Amish people. Okay? Like in 100 years from now, society is going to be, I don't know, basically just a bunch of robot humans. And us will be like the Amish communities. Okay? This is the new structure of how it's going to work.
Into our civilization, and it's a conquest by stealth. And so I think that elements of the United States government are aware of this. And I think, and certainly if you referencing Carla Turner's work, one thing that Carla was always talking about was the fact that some of the...
Shout out Carla Turner. We just watched her video the other day. If you missed it, go and check it out.
These abductees would be abducted by gray aliens. And then when they were returned to their homes, the military would show up, and then they would endure a MILAB, a military abduction, which was oftentimes much more violent. And the military, according to Turner, and her husband got abducted. By the way, Turner's husband was abducted by elements of the military. They think they were brought onto Air Force bases in some cases, sometimes underground bases, and they were interviewed. And interviewed's a nice way to say it. They were, what's the word?
Interrogated.
Interrogated, thank you. They were interrogated in regard to what was happening on the alien vessel. What were the Greys doing? They were trying to figure out what the Greys were doing. And they're trying to use the abductees to get insight into what the Greys were doing. And because I think there's panic had ensued by that time. I don't know what you think about this. I personally am persuaded that the Greada contract was real, that it actually happened.
So this is this Eisenhower agreement that essentially, in exchange for, some tactical advantage, maybe some help with, warfare or whatever, we would let the aliens do sort of medical experiments across, the United States population.
To abduct our citizenry.
So I don't know, but I also... if you look at the data, it seems like abductions sort of ramped up around that time, like mid-century. So it's very interesting.
It's very interesting, Jesse. It's very interesting. And it did. Like I just said, it hockey sticked. And what's interesting as well is I've heard people say that E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, whatever it is, I can't remember. Anyway, those movies, Spielberg, by the way, were a run at early disclosure. Like this was actually in preparation for disclosure. And then it was around that time when the military cottoned on to the fact that, like, actually seems like we've been duped here. It seems like we've been screwed. i.e. they've realized that they've signed themselves up to basically be turned into like transhuman, metahuman, techno slaves or something like that. So, Josh, please put the full video with Tim on later. That's a 5-hour podcast, my friend. We will not be watching the full 5 hours here, but there is a link below if you want to go and watch the full thing. Go and check that out. Shout out to American Alchemy. I lost my train of thought. God damn it. I was cooking something up there. Wrath of Khan even says carrots were dangled and now we're going to be taken over the hubrid overlords, forcing us to integrate. We need a palate cleanser after that. SMH. Yep. Hey, remember, guys, it might not be true. This is just my theory. Just a theory. I had a theory that the dark side of the moon was always dark for some reason. And that theory wasn't true. So, maybe this one isn't either. Perfectly Imperfect says, Josh, seriously, Rockefeller took away known healthcare for his own gain. Tim is evolving. Story changes much. You are my dot connector. Love our weirdo community. Many here know because we know. Yes, I do think that we do know because we know. not when it comes to the moon, but other things. And the Rockefeller changing healthcare for his own gain. Yes, I have looked into that. And yeah, yep. I mean, what good of a business is a business that, like, you know, cures, just straight up like cures people, right? Like, that's a bad business. You're basically like diminishing your customers. You know what I mean? You're diminishing your customers. It's not really a good like business at all. And like Jesse said in the clip earlier, it doesn't mean like all like healthcare is bad. Like, you know, if we didn't have healthcare, my dad probably wouldn't even be here, right? So, you know, healthcare can and is good for many things, but there is definitely a part of it like medicine that does seem like it is designed to often keep people sick, or at least mask the pain rather than get to the root cause of it and fix it. Because like the truth is, that is bad business. If it is a business, you are literally getting rid of your customers. And it's unfortunate that like a monetary and financial gain is evidently thought of when it comes to people's health. Because there does seem to be like a lot of like ancient, you know, Chinese medicines and techniques that like can heal you, and have an argument to the fact that like you actually have everything in you to heal yourself if you knew how to use it and how to kind of operate your body in a certain way, and your thoughts and your mind and your alignment. There is actually a path to like fixing yourself, but instead it's just like, here, take this pill that makes you feel a bit better, but you're actually now addicted to them, so you have to keep taking them, and you actually don't get better, unfortunately. Yeah. Yep. That not much of a palate cleanser there for you, Wrath. But you know, it is what it is, unfortunately. All right, last clip from Diana Pasolka here to wrap this one up on metahumans and evolution.
So basically it's about human beings becoming two different species. Okay. And one of them is created, they're called metahumans, and they start biohacking themselves with tech. Okay. Sound familiar? So they do this and they become metahumans and another species, right? And you know, just kind of another fork, such that humans can barely understand them because they're so far removed. So in a sense, are they gods, right? No, they're metahumans, they're superhumans, they're enhanced humans, okay? I see that hopefully on the horizon, frankly. I hope so. Not that we have two species, but that we can use our technology, or we can become so integrated with our technology that we can survive, okay? We can survive the radiation in space. We can't go places now because of the radiation in space. Perhaps we can develop our bodies such that we can survive the radiation in space. So there's this idea of these metahumans. Now, there's also this idea that technology is just another form of humans. We've created it, right? And so maybe it is bent on surviving, thereby using us, you know, kind of as a meme or a team. Some people are calling them teams now, these self-generating, they're replicating themselves through us. Okay. I see that also. And I don't think that's terribly bad. Maybe it's just the way that we are evolving. It doesn't mean that you know, we're evolving all the time. Like, we're taller than we used to be, you know, we have different skills, and, you know, so I don't see that as a bad thing. I think a lot of people see it as, if we're not how we are now, it's a tragedy, but it's not a tragedy. How we are now is actually a tragedy for most people alive.
Interesting take there. And I like that. You know, she's kind of saying that a sort of a meta-human, or like an integration with things that are like generally positive. I think it could be a good thing. Like, I don't actually see anything wrong with that. But the fact that the way it's being pushed and designed, oh, we got Pine Gap pigeoned again. My apologies. The way that it's been pushed and designed seems more like something that is, you know, like an Orwellian future, like a big brother. You don't have a name, you have a number, and you're basically just another rat in the maze, rat in a cage. Despite all of my rage, despite all of our rage, it seems like we are still, in fact, rats in a cage. Stevie Flesher says, Polarity is my favorite place. Been wearing your merch every day. Oh, Stevie, you warm my heart, brother. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you. And I hope that merch is keeping you cozy, nice and warm. So it'd be starting to get warm over that side of the world for you guys. We are in the shift of the season, but I think that's about it for today. How did we go for time? 2 hours and 6 minutes. We're pretty much right on the money, guys. I'm thinking for the next couple of days we might have a watch along. We might have a watch along or two. I'm still a bit undecided. I've got a few different things. I've got a more recent interview with Dan Burchett I want to look at. There's the 2 interviews with Bill Woods where he's like in a tent. This is like the Project Looking Glass whistleblower. I think there was something else I wanted to look at. I was even thinking of like watching Timothy Alberino's face peelers. You know, like God, I'm struggling for words. His face peelers presentation where he kind of lays out his whole case in Peru and basically talks about what went on there. So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm mulling up for the next couple of days. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, I'm also going to be editing the Chris Ramsey interview. That'll be coming probably early next week. And also another travel vlog. That's on the cards as well. 420 Breezy says P. Shaw is Baal. No, he isn't. Don't you dare say that about P. Shaw. P. Shaw would be protecting us from Baal. Cats are the protectors of the spiritual realm, as we know. So, no, I detest that. P. Shaw is not Baal. Thank you very much, though, 420. Appreciate you, man. All right, guys, that's it for today. We will hopefully be back tomorrow with another show. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like. You will get a discount at your local mental health facility, and it will help this video spread, and it will help our good vibes grow. And that's what it's all about. So thank you very much. Be good, be kind, get outside, touch some grass, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Peace.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.